Hallo miteinander, I'm Gish86, and this is the Disappearing of Gensokyo. Last time, we found ourselves a burb. Yes, Tenshi called Mystia a burb at one point. The central lake we were about to inspect opens the world map. When selecting a stage, you can modify one of your weapons, only one. Tenshi always has to be brought. We currently only have Mystia though. Our companion happens to be in the mood to sing. During Phantasmagoria of Flower View, she spoke almost entirely in lyrics, annoying everyone. This time, Mystia sings to hide her worry for Cherno. That's kind of cute. The setting is still the same as last episode. We're in an unsafe part of heaven, one that has been hopelessly overrun by the sinsacks. Mystia's secondary attack is a note-shaped grenade which uses up no ammunition. That one. This can also confuse enemies, but it can't be used too often in a row. Now what do we have here? The game tells us to collect. Magic piece acquired. Magic pieces are the unique collectible of DOG that you can trade in for upgrades. They appear as these runes in the top right corner, and from now on, there will always be 3 per level. You will need to be sharp in your senses and instincts, as magic pieces tend to be hidden, sometimes in plain sight, other times in devilishly obscure manners. Here we meet a new enemy type, my favorite zombie, Yoshika Miyako. Zombies, actually, because she's not unique. No, there will be swarms of Yoshika. They're not too big of a threat, but every one of their kind has to be killed twice. They'll revive shortly after the first time. We kind of didn't utilize the Minecraft explosives there. There should be other opportunities, like right here. One quick lighting of a fuse and... wouldn't you say that was well timed? About the many Yoshikas. Not only do they refuse to stay dead, every time they fall, they set free a green cloud. That is not for show. Do not sit in it mindlessly, you will be poisoned. The damage this does is not too alarming, and it does wear off fast. But combined with other damage sources, the poison can make the difference. Iku's call from a while ago told us there was another magic piece nearby. It is down this slope, right at the end of the path. When you grab a magic piece, it's very likely to spawn new enemies. It's kind of like the old Doom, where almost any pickup would create more monsters. In our case, we must face another imposter Tenshi. As you can see, the easy time we had with her on our first confrontation was a bit of a fluke. Wannabe Tenshi is a pretty big deal and almost reduced our shield energy to 0. With that, we come to the health system of DOG. It is Halo-esque. Your shield will fill up if you haven't taken any damage over a long enough time span. When you're close to death, the corners of the screen will redden and you will hear a heartbeat. So in short, health is regenerative, like in a textbook brown military shooter. Once again, we have a huge similarity to Tenjo no Tempest in that. Is this still a coincidence? It feels like I am copy-pasting my commentary from back then. What are we hearing here? Muda 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 muda? Yeah, after the checkpoint, we find the missing ice fairy, Cherno. This resembles the time when we stumbled upon Mystia, but something is a little off. The arena is too big and empty, and there is tension in the air. Cherno has apparently also been attacked by pretend Touhous. This should be common ground to start from, except she thinks we're phonies as well. Thus, we engage a slightly bigger mini-boss. This one even has a health bar at the top of the screen. Cherno begins the battle with spread-shot icicles, but as her life drops, the attacks evolve into her classic perfect freeze pattern. And it's over. Don't skip through this cutscene too quickly, you're invulnerable while it lasts. All it took was a good beating, plus the code word 1 + 1 = 9, and Cherno finally trusts us. It really was Mistia who did most of the damage, didn't she? Well, what a friend she is! In a few moments, Cherno will turn into her frosty ammunition. One thing that's noteworthy here, there once existed a pretty severe bug that players might have experienced. Cherno's ammo wouldn't appear. The problem was you needed to pick it up to advance the string of objectives. If you had that bug, you were essentially soft-locked. Say no to yakitori, oh Mistia. The mentioned bug led to quite a bit of review bombing when this game came out on Steam. It's never actually happened to me personally, and I assume it's pretty rare too. Supposedly, the issue has long been patched. I'm sure it's not even happening anymore. Anyway, we have Cherno now. In the franchise, our Ice Fairy is known as a rather childish girl, with way more confidence than her lack of strength gives her right to. You might expect a solid weapon out of her that ultimately loses its usefulness as the game goes on. Wrong. Honestly, it's baffling how mighty Cherno is in DOG. Especially with how early she's given to you. She might have my second favorite moveset. The primary shot functions like an SMG, the damage gets very high if you keep your aim on the target. On top of that, every attack of Cherno has at least a mild slowing effect. In case of her bomb, it even entraps foes in thick blocks of ice. The third magic piece can be found along this side path. Picking this one up does not cause an ambush, no. A pretty fierce group has already gathered around the rune in advance. Getting rid of them is no small task, but by now, only a bunch of Yoshikas are left. You'll often see that we'll be waiting on Yoshika zombies to get back up. The reason for that is that only upon their second final death do they drop red and blue icons. Believe me, we do need those icons. I'm not playing slow just to tease you. Cherno's secondary fire is a spread shot of 7 icicles. That one is actually a little underwhelming when compared to her ice SMG and big ice bombs. Many greater fairies with special attacks like the Star Rain are mixing themselves into the ever-growing enemy groups. Some even have shielding like we do. Nonetheless, Stage 2 is still very manageable, especially on our normal mode setting. The main objective is telling us to look for the Palanquin ship. Learning that name, we already know who the mysterious vessel belongs to. We are about to see one of my favorite characters. She introduces herself with the words, "Life is precious, do not waste it." What Gensokyan would be respectful towards sinsacks? No one but the Buddhist high priestess, Byakuren Hijiri. What's so interesting to me about her is how far canonical and phenonical interpretations drift apart. We're soon going to find out where on that spectrum MyACG places her. The Buddhist crew has fled to Bhava'agra, as the situation on the surface is even more dire than here. The conversation between Tenshi and Byakuren is starting out a little bit too formal and cold. I do not think we have a friendship blossoming here. With some false flattery, Byakuren persuades us into coming to her aid. Buckle up for an arena segment. The phrasing might have made it seem like we must protect Byakuren from the sinsacks. That is thankfully not the case. All the enemies will go exclusively after our hide. The situation is somewhat similar to the transport platform of stage 1. However, the timer only shows for how long enemies will spawn. To proceed, we must get rid of all the scoundrels afterwards. I'm only noticing something now. To repair the palanquin, Byakuren is using her Danmaku from Undefined Fantastic Object. It's a cute touch. With how action-packed and fast-paced DOG is, I never had the chance to notice such a small detail. I was just too focused. While the Let's Play is aimed at you, of course, I am happy to learn something myself from time to time. That took care of the last Yoshika. Can't leave with her still biting our ankles. Looks like everyone is safe and sound. Byakuren immediately takes the liberty of inviting herself to the Azure Fortress. Humble, isn't she? Well, I already know the reason why we wouldn't mind her at our base. I like this scene. With all of our friends, we are riding the skies. And that does it for stage 2. We return to heaven with new guests in Touhou. Where do we go from here? We know that Tenshi is an egotistical brat who normally wouldn't become an incident solver. Leave it to Byakuren to give her a push. The Buddhist mentions how the innocent and helpless are threatened. Of course, our Celestial couldn't care less about some wimps. That marks the start of one heck of a lecture. This, by the way, is a very canonical aspect of Byakuren, the yokai Jesus. She may in actuality be a lot more morally flawed than what she established herself to be. Still, she is on a nagging streak here that would even make Kassen proud. Tenshi needs to look beyond the state of heaven and care about the weak on the surface. With that, we are left speechless, and we've got a new hook for adventure. Couldn't have the game suddenly end here, with the result that Tenshi never left Bhava'agra. Once this mandatory scene ends, you can talk to Byakuren again and learn about the services she provides. We'll do so in a moment. There are other people we could talk to, but let's do what I just mentioned. Yes, Byakuren is actually the person you trade your magic pieces with. We found all 3 of them in stage 2, which already qualifies us for the first level of upgrades. But only after our friend has extracted their power. We can keep 3%. Of what? 3% of probably very little, and that leaves Tenshi quite annoyed. We're going to have a bunch of symbols appearing shortly. Only the top row is available to us, and we can only have one of these 3 perks active. They stand for additional point icons, reduced melee damage against us, and reduced range damage against us. Usually, I go for the extra points, they'll add up in the long run. Only when an upcoming level is really difficult do I prefer the other traits that help with combat. As we approach Iku, we are once again teased with how nice we are. The subject goes towards Cirno and Mystia, who with how weak they are, should seek a safe shelter according to Tenshi. I don't like it when games threaten such things. I think our two friends are useful and wouldn't want them stripped from our arsenal. We needn't actually worry. The Ice Fairy and Night Sparrow will stay at our disposal. By lore, Cherno is indeed undying, the immortal idiot. In-game, this does not have any consequences. I think there may be differences in durability for characters, but it's hard to tell in this kind of game where there are no numerical health values. We learn at this point that grumpy old Tenshi secretly wants to make friends. Of course, the tough attitude was just an act, we all knew. There is one more function you can access at Iku, and that is alternative coloration. You can not just view all the characters who you have with her, but also select another palette for some of them. The Color Pack DLC that's required to do this is free. I suppose it just wasn't done when the game released. We have one more visitor to speak to. Yoshika? She only understands Japanese, it seems. Why is she here? And how did she even get to the Azure Fortress? Anyway, while we look around our base, I wanted to mention a few more things about Stage 2. During the Cherno mid-boss fight, you could hear a singer. That was Senya, a pretty well-known Doujin artist closely tied to the Yuhei satellite circle. The song was Override to Innocence, and it's one of several vocal tracks integrated into DOG. The next noteworthy aspect about Stage 2 is that I recommend it for point farming. I argue that you don't really need to do that, but I once did it only for a Steam achievement. We have raised our point value from 97 to 442. Stage 2 really is an efficient spot to make money. With that, I'm Gish86, this was the Disappearing of Gensokyo, and next time, an umbrella that is also a blacksmith. Bis bald!